My name's Colin Stillfelder, and I was given this title. I am the Program Leader for Architectural Design Technology, not that title. How will the digital revolution transform design and delivery in the built environment? The problem with being given a title is really breaking it down. Which digital revolution are we actually talking about? Our student body is really pushing forward a lot of interesting ideas. We had some presentations earlier this week where a student showed us a building in Switzerland which is essentially a solar box. Fantastic building, 70% more efficient, dragging all sorts of sunshine into producing 4 times more energy than the building needs. It is an incredibly ugly building. And it's that interesting space in trying to encourage the students to look at these interesting innovations, but actually still remembering that people have to live and work and exist around these buildings, the sustainable communities element already mentioned. I love making my students do YMCA impressions on building sites. So in their structural choices, the systems are selecting whole building systems or just systems for particular elements. They are really pushing forward with that innovation. Cladding, finishes and all surfaces, smart glass seems to be the thing that students are obsessing with at the moment. This does really push, as a university and an education institution, how we perceive this work. They are sometimes presenting stuff that we've not heard of or we've not got a complete understanding of. So it's pushing our understanding as lecturers and as staff in terms of broadening our understanding of how a digital revolution can encourage architectural design and technology. In the construction industry at the moment, you can't really talk about a digital revolution without mentioning those 3 little words. I'm not going to ask you the question because it's first thing in the morning, but building information modeling is the current and massive obsession within the construction industry. Our student body, like some of the supply chain, you'll certainly discover, anyone who works in construction, that not everybody's bought into the concept of building information modeling yet, are really pushing forward with this. There are enormous potential within this. My background is also in social housing, and this is a fantastic project in Liverpool where, in order to keep a hold of staff in a housing association who were under threat of, there were staff in the maintenance department under threat of redundancy during the recession, a firm of architects worked with them, produced a building information driven project which allowed those staff to use their skills to build a house. And they built 3 new houses for social rent, kept their jobs and added to the stock. So there are great ways of using this in more than just the massive projects we're often shown. There are also some significant pitfalls. I work in North Wales, and a lot of this is around the techno-babble language. Who on earth came up with the term data drop? You're trying to convince people in the middle of Gwynedd, which is where I come from, despite the lack of accent, that they need to be engaging with building information modeling, instead of talking about digitizing the documents they already have. Just give us the information you've got. We talk to them about data drops, and they glaze over, and that's the end of that particular conversation. Of course, at least in England, you have a sort of deadline, let's say 2016 in April. In Wales, nobody's actually decided anything about that. The Welsh Government Minister I heard speaking stood up in a meeting, spoke in Welsh in a bit of a mumble, sat down, and that was the end of that conversation. So there are great advancements in these various digital revolutions. We're not just always, therefore, really connecting with the people who need to deliver it. Do we need to wait for a revolution? Well, we are really there in some ways in much simpler fashions. Though I got caught up in a particular mistake at a conference recently. Can anyone tell me what's wrong with that terminology? The human immunodeficiency virus. And at a conference some 2 months ago, I talked about the building information model and got laughed at and pointed at and jeered at. The terminology we're throwing around is exciting, but we can put people off some of these advancements by insisting that we talk in certain ways about them. I peer-reviewed a paper about some projects in the Netherlands. Fantastic house, all the latest technology. Nobody had explained it to the tenants who moved in after the original tenants. So when it was hot in the summer, they opened the windows and the heating kicked on because it was a balanced heating system. Next to the front door was a great big red button. What it was for is you slam the button and all the non-essential electric supply to the house goes off. So just the fridge is left on and whatever core systems you indicated. Nobody had explained this to the tenants. Therefore, nobody was hitting the red button, and the house and the energy prices of this building were going up and up and up. In a phone-in a few years ago, someone asked me about this, and because my background is social housing, to explain that we give tenants these enormous packs to explain to them how to use these things, and nobody reads them. So why not hang a bib over the thermostat and any sort of smart meters you have in the house to explain to people this is how it works. And once you've got your head around it, you take the bib away, and put it in a box and forget about it. I wish I'd copyrighted it because someone in the phone in Amazon talking about this said, I'm having that, that's it, it's mine, gone. But there are ways we can make things easier to really catch on with this. Apps is an interesting way, a question to be asked. Can we do this in ways that tenants have it on a phone or residents have it on a phone so they don't have to go through a document? What's the point of a digital revolution if there's a 40-page handbook that goes with it? Now, there are more serious reasons for actually advancing the way we do use things, using the digital revolution to cut down on various bits of waste. We've done 40 million tonnes, according to the BBC, of e-waste into landfills. That's the equivalent of some 800 laptops a second. Click, by the way, BBC programme, fantastic for stealing stuff for lectures. I watched one a couple of weeks ago talking about biodegradable circuit boards. So there's an institute in Germany that is now capable of producing biodegradable circuit boards, capable of measuring temperature, heat, temperature is heat, light, pressure, using natural dye to illuminate, and they will disintegrate over 6 months. The possibilities of that are massive. That means, for example, in a couple of years' time, they believe they're going to be able to print on cellulose paper, so essentially some of the same stuff that the human body is made of, that they'll be able to print solar panels on that will disintegrate over 6 months, meaning you can install technology into the roofs of buildings to test their performance after it's been created and not worry about going up there to get rid of it, because as it rains over 6 months, it'll disappear. It does have other implications. They've been putting this stuff into rats. I'm not sure how stressed the rats are, but their temperature and pressure can now be tested. They believe they're 5 to 10 years away from putting that into the human body, so we may not need reports and apps. We'll be able to control our houses from our heads, but let's not get too carried away with that. But the modern technology that we need for developing that within an architectural sense is here already in many ways. A colleague of mine, speaking at a conference, another program leader, they buried sensors, cheap £2 sensors, into a hemp building they were creating to see how it worked. Not into human bodies, I should stress, this is into hemp buildings, because they're cheap. And once the battery runs out, that's it. It's just a bit of plastic and leave it there. I was a bit concerned about it catching fire if the batteries disintegrate, but we kind of skipped over that. So massive advancements are coming in terms of what we can do with biodegradable technologies that will help us measure how our buildings perform in the short term, to see how things are drying and things are expanding. But some of that technology is £2 in the local Maplins in actually moving that forward. It is an issue to be considering. We push, particularly at the university, the idea of sustainability, because there is a danger that we are creating an environment where there's so much waste. The digital revolution has a problem in that things advance so quickly, new phones come out so fast that we are wasting a lot of materials. There is a huge amount of plastic in the oceans. We're probably damaging future space travel because there's so much rubbish floating around the planet, or bits of rockets that we've left there. So it is an issue to consider. I am a bit of a skeptic in some areas of this. I kind of stray a little bit on the side of Stephen Hawking's when we're talking about the issue of artificial intelligence. Every time I see someone making robots dance or poking them with sticks, I think the robots are going to remember that when they take over. But there are lots of advancements to go. I think human beings is the bit that we keep missing in some of these digital advancements. Building information modeling may collapse, not because computer programs don't talk to each other, because people don't necessarily talk to each other. You must all have worked in an office where there's the odd colleague who will send you an email rather than actually physically speak to you. However, I do think that getting our heads around the human element of that is a way to move forward. I don't know if any of you have heard of the nudge effect, the idea that you can gently push people into doing things. This is how Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam reduced urine on the floor by 80% by giving men something to aim at, by printing a little bee on the urinal. Digital technology and advancements in building construction and systems can just take a hint at human psychology and gently push us into better behavior, not leaving the lights on, not leaving the heating too high, not opening windows when you shouldn't. As a kind of passing thought, and I'm glad you brought up apps because that was perfectly timed, what about predictive building systems? About a month ago, the people who created predictive text sold that for £118 million to somebody. Why can't we have buildings that are doing that? So using the technology we have already and advancing it through slowly understanding the psychology of the people living in there, not giving them a manual to work with, but designing the building so that the systems come on when they expect people to come home, and they don't if they don't, connected to an app that they can work with, heating systems that get used to the variations of temperature the person likes. All their behaviors would then inform the building. Gathering that data through apps would then be the way you would then develop future buildings. There's lots of potential there. And I managed to do all of that without making a predictive text joke, because most of them involved the word duck. I didn't get away with that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Colin. Colin, I'm really pleased to hear that you are you're covering up this kind of issues in your with your students. I suppose my question is, what are your students? What are they making of it when you're talking about the built environment? I suppose in these terms, are they embracing it? Are they kind of what is their reaction to it?
Really very positive. We have quite a large student body in terms of not numbers, but certainly range of ages, and it's something they're enthusiastic about across that, from the school leavers through to the people who've been working in the industry for a long time. They all recognise that you can't just keep chucking up the stuff that we have been chucking up, or in Wales where we're trying to deal with houses that are at least 100 years old, what you can do with those to make them work better. Nobody wants to waste money or materials.
Because something like BIM, I mean, there is a huge amount of scepticism around the industry, around the use of BIM and digital technologies. Presumably the students, for them it's kind of, it's just what you do, isn't it?
Well, they love it, but that's not the problem. The students and the architectural industry in North Wales, for example, isn't the problem. It's the supply chain, it's the facility managers, it's the people who are taking the buildings over who just don't care whether there's a model that you can run everything off. So it's not a problem for us, it's a problem when it actually leaves the university.
And I suppose my final concern is what kind of connection are you making to the likes of John Arup or the rest of the industry? Are you in your own little ivory tower of academia, or do you have a regular outlet with the industry?
Luckily, I'm the chair of the North Wales BIM region, so there you go. I'm involved. So we try and give the students live projects we've taken from industry as much as we can, which means we're involving industry in the education process rather than it's a very small ivory tower in North Wales.
Great stuff. Colin, thank you very much for sharing all that with us. Colin Stewfeller, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Applause.